Welcome, everybody. My Muscle Connection, episode 43. Today, we've got a real special guest, Captain Jason Pittman, United States Navy, who is Commodore of Submarine Squadron 6 out of Norfolk, Virginia. Now, you may be thinking, why are we bringing a captain from the U.S. Navy, who's a submarine squadron commander, on our show when we talk about, crossing mental barriers when it comes to bodybuilding, competing, being an athlete, or just trying to lose weight, anything like that? Why would we bring somebody to talk about their naval career? But when you hear about this guy's naval career and you hear the mindset he had to get from being a music major to being a Commodore in the United States Navy, these are things that you can use to excel in any type of goal. You guys are going to learn. For those of you that have never done a contest prep or never done like 100% all or nothing dedication to a fat loss journey, or even trying to gain muscle or anything like that, the lessons you learn, the mental strength, the mindset is universal with the mindset and determination and dedication to be someone who wants to go to college and be a straight A student, somebody that wants to start a business and outdo every other business of its kind, to somebody who goes into career and wants to be the absolute best. It's all universal. What you hear in listening to Captain Pittman talk about what his goals were at each step moving up in his career and how he thought about things, you can take that and apply it to you following a contest prep, getting ready for a bodybuilding competition, to trying to get the baby weight off after you have a kid and you're on a strict program, to somebody who is a hard gainer and they have to go the extreme as far as eating regimented and doing certain things to gain muscle. It's all universal. And this is probably the biggest point we try to make in NLP Warrior, is we try to stress that a lot. That's why we have all different types of people coming on, because you guys are going to learn that the determination, dedication, the steps you have to take to succeed, the mental mindset, it's all the same. It's universal. You'll notice, and I always reference Arnold Schwarzenegger when I talk about this, at being the best bodybuilder in the world. And he took those same concepts and the same dedication to that and went into Hollywood and became the highest paid actor as a freaking action hero, which is unheard of. And then rose to the highest political office you could get to as a non-born American citizen when he became governor of California and served 2 terms as a Republican governor in California. So when we bring these people on, their stories, the way they thought about things, how they went after obstacles, you guys need to listen to this, because this is just important. You can take that from this and add it to whatever goal you have, whether it's health and fitness or no matter what it is. It's universal. And what you're going to see across the board is that everybody that has this mindset and has this go-get attitude, no matter what field it is or what goal it is, they tend to rise up to the top.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mind Muscle Connection. I think this is 43 we're at now.
Episode 43.
A year. And we have another special guest coming on. And before we start, I want to talk about what we've done over the last year. We're closing in our 1 year, and it's each week's getting more exciting. We've had one of the best bodybuilders in the 80s, Rich Gaspari, come on talking about his trials and tribulations. We've talked about during Mental Health Month. We've had Pete Isip come on and talk about mental health and overcoming obstacles. And I think we're definitely growing as a podcast, and we appreciate everybody's support, the likes, the shares, the comments. And we're, I think, the most unique podcast out there, because we're talking about the mental aspect between professional bodybuilders, a trainer who has to train people to push them past their limits, and a professional hypnotist. Today we have Captain Jason Pittman, who is the Commodore of, I'm not exactly sure of the command that you're at. Sir, what command are you at?
I am the Commodore of Submarine Squadron 6 here in Norfolk.
Explain a little bit what that means for people who don't understand what a Commodore is. I know what a Commodore is.
Yeah. So Commodore, more of an honorary term nowadays. A Commodore, for the dictionary, means somebody who's in charge of multiple ships. So I am the guy in charge of all 17 submarines here in Norfolk. So each submarine has its own commanding officer and its own structure, but all of those commanding officers report to me. So my job is to make sure that they're, getting manned, they're training, they're getting equipping and certifying them for whatever their next event is. Some of them are new construction ships that are getting built. So I'm making sure that they're ready to take it on sea trials. Some of them are fully operational ships where I'm certifying them to go deploy and do the full spectrum of submarine warfare operations. End quote.
That's a pretty big position. And, going from where have you started till now, you've had an interesting career, which we like to talk about. But each week we like to throw in a topic of mental toughness and mental development. And especially when it comes to athletics. So we have a lot of athletes that come in, that listen to us. So what I want to talk about this week is being uncommon amongst common people. And this that's something I kind of taken from Navy SEAL David Goggins, who I listen to his podcast a lot, and I listen to his his videos, and he speaks about that. And I kind of see that anywhere where development and growth is needed, people like to get to a level and almost maintain there without realizing that, to get to the next level, you have to be different. And I experienced this myself. Okay. And this is what made me want to have this topic. When I was in the gym about 2 weeks ago, we were working out, we were training, and I didn't have a very happy look on my face. And this athlete comes up to me. She's also a pro. She's like, "Why don't you look happy? Like, why are you upset?" And I was like, "I'm just working hard. I got to get to the next level." But she's like, "Yeah, but you did so good at your last show." I'm like, "True, but I didn't win." And she's like, "Well, you're already a pro." And that there clicked something in my mind. And a lot of professional athletes at the IFBB level, even in the national level, amateurs, they're just happy being right there. And I'm not happy being at that level. So in order for me to go against, now my competition now is top 16 in the world. Those are the people I'm competing against in the top 5. I have to do things, train harder, and create a newer, better version of me so I can beat these athletes. And that requires taking things to an entirely new level. So that's why I wanted to talk about that. And sir, you had a interesting degree. And I'm sure you, from what I've heard before in the past, you had a lot of people not thinking that you were going to make it, and you had to change and develop yourself over the years. So talk about your degree, how everything started, and getting from where you were to where you are now.
So I, Texas kid, born and raised, and in order to pay for school, went on an ROTC scholarship. And so I went to the University of Texas, and I majored in music. I was going to, have our Navy pay for my college degree and do my time and go be a band director for high school marching band in Texas. So I have a degree, a Bachelor of Music, specialized in music studies, emphasis on music education from the University of Texas. So clearly the next most logical step is nuclear submarines.
Right.
But so I, when you're an ROTC student, you have to go back in those days, at least, this is the late 90s. You had to pick a warfare specialty. It's like, hey, we paid for your school. You're either going to be a surface officer, submarine officer, a pilot, or some kind of special forces, either SEAL or EOD. Like that's what you had to choose from.
Right.
I'm blind, like all good submarine officers are. And so, obviously, special warfare and pilot was out of the question. So it was either SWO or submarines. And I decided I wanted to go submarines because I like the mission set. I like the size of the crew. It's about 150 people. I liked what they did. Also, there's no ammo submarine, right? Like, there's no hey, you go surface Navy. You could be on a destroyer. You could be on a cruiser. You could be on an ammo ship. You could be on a supply ship. Right. Submarines, you're on a submarine, you're going to go do submarine stuff, regardless of which one you get assigned to. So that's what I wanted to do because of the mission. And then this thing creeped up called nuclear power. And so, for nuclear power officers, we have to go interview with the 4-star admiral in charge of nuclear power. We go through some technical interviews at naval reactors, and then we sit down with the admiral. And it was an interesting day because I think they were just surprised that a music major could find the building, much less that I was there to interview for acceptance into their program. But, so I got through the technical interviews. Okay. So I'm sitting down with the admiral and he says, and at that time it was Admiral Skip Bowman, fine American, great individual. And he looks at me, he goes, "All right, Midshipman Pittman, You did really well in your technical interviews, but there's some concern over whether or not you can handle the course load of nuclear power school. How do you feel about that? And I said, well, sir, I'm a music education major. And in order to, go be a band director, you have to learn how to play all the instruments to some degree. And the way we do that at Texas is we have these fundamentals class, brass fundamentals, woodwind fundamentals, where you learn everything. And I was in my woodwind fundamentals class and I was getting a B, and that annoyed me. So I went to the professor and said, what can I do to get an A in your class? And she said, if you can write down, the fingering, how to play every single note on every single woodwind instrument on your final, I'll give you an A. And I looked at him, I was like, sir, I got an A in that class. So I figure I can learn anything you can teach me. And so he stood up, big grin, handshake. We're going to give you a shot, son. And so I got accepted into the program.
Cool.
So now I'm at Power School, and Power School is an interesting thing because you're basically taking a watered down nuclear engineering degree, very, very watered down, and shoved it into your face in 6 months to see if you can understand basic nuclear power, nuclear physics, electrical engineering, radiological controls, things like that. Now, the way we try to help students along in Power School is if you're starting to struggle, they're going to assign you study hours. Mandatory. Hey, you're not doing well. You're going to study outside of class a mandatory minimum of 20 hours a week.
That was my high school life. Yep, I remember that.
Right. But they assign it to you and then they start tracking it. They're like, hey, man, you're on Mando 20s and you're not doing your 20. What's up? And then some guys, they'll start doing what we call Mando TAC hours. It's like, look, you're on Mando 30, TAC 5. Like, you will study 30 hours outside of class, a minimum of 5 hours a day. Because some guys would come in on the weekend, like, I'm just going to spend all day on Saturday and knock out 18 hours of it, not meeting the intent. I mightily struggled in Power School, as you would imagine, considering I'm here and I hadn't seen math that had letters in it in 3 years. So I was struggling, and yet my advisors and everybody, no one ever put me on anything above Mando 20. I would fail tests, and I would never get any of that extra help. Now, granted, I think it's because I was kicking my own ass. I was already doing way more than they could have probably assigned. So that might have been part of it, but it was also kind of I feel like everyone was just going, let's see if he can even survive. Like, no one was really like, hey, we got to get you through. They were just like, I don't even know why you're here. So let's just see what you can do. And they were kind of leaving me to my own devices to see if I could get it done. So I studied my ass off, and I beat the crap out of myself and got through.
So would you say that the tools you learned from, it sounds like when you were in studying music and you got that B and got that A, you used the same mental aptitude to apply to Power School. I mean, it was basically the same tools. You got a B and you wanted the A, something that you were not that good in. And then you basically got that and said, hey, I'm going to apply this to Power School to be a nuclear officer. So, am I right on saying that?
No, I would absolutely agree. It's I'm smart. I'll grant you that. I'm smart at being able to shove information in and figure it out. Right. But I also am. I was thinking about this the other day. Hard work beats talent 95% of the time, right? And so I'm not super talented, but you won't outwork me. And so, I was presented with this challenge of, you can either work hard or fail out of this program. And so I was all right. Well, I'm at least going to control what I can control, which is work insanely hard and try to make sure that I controlled every aspect that was when, hey, if the test comes and I miss something, then I miss something, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I may not be smart. I may not be able to, figure it all out and kind of nuke out equations, but if I could just brute force memorize everything, then I'll get through. So that's what I did. So I kind of relied on this aspect of me that's like, I may not win. I may not be the best at what I'm trying to do, but I will never give up.
When you were a junior officer, going in, in the early ranks, and you were, amongst your peers, did you have to deal with any, I guess, naysayers, like, hey, you got a music degree, like people saying like, this guy can't really rely on this guy. You know what I mean? He does not trained in this or anything along those lines? Did you ever have to prove yourself amongst them?
100% all the time.
Mhm.
I still do. Right. I'm an 06. I've been in for 24 years. And you will still get people because that's our community, right? It's a very technical oriented community. And it is a lot of engineers. And because people don't even know what it takes to get a music degree, they discount it, right? It's the classic, I don't know what it is, so it must not be hard. And so especially a lot in my early years of my career, all the time you get a music major, huh? And you would get this look from them, just like, wow, like good for you. Like, oh, wow. Like, okay, thanks for, whatever kind of disbursement, equal opportunity program you think got me in here. You could just tell that their expectation was lowered a little bit, or they were doubly surprised that, like I would be at I was the junior officer of the year on my first submarine. And so you go to like the squadron competition for JO of the year, and you could tell they were just like, wow, like a music major, so interesting. Like they're not even impressed by what I've achieved.
Right.
It's like they were impressed because I'd managed to achieve despite what they perceived as a limitation. So all the time.
Now, as you progress throughout your career, going from, ensign, LJG, lieutenant commander, et cetera, there had to be a new level of you each time. You're talking about, and this is what I want the listeners to really understand, is that now you're talking about going from just, running a division to running I'm not 100% sure how it happens on submarines, running a division to running a department to running a ship to now running a bunch of ships. What has changed, and where have you developed, from both your weaknesses and strengths to say, hey, you know what, I'm really good in this area. I have to focus on this. Hey, you know what, I need more development here. And, what type of struggles have you had? Because what I want people to listen to, and people that are listening, is like somebody who reaches, 06 level, somebody who reaches, top 4, IFBB levels. We're always focusing on what we did that was great and where we need work so we can get to the upper next level. And that's what, we have a lot of amateur bodybuilders that listen to us, and they don't ever see that because of social media. They just see these great athletes that have perfect lives, perfect relationships, everything's perfect. And because they don't have that, they don't ever think they can achieve that. And that's what I want to get across, is that we don't remain the same. We always try to be better, different, but better.
No, yeah, things have certainly changed as you go. I think the core work ethic is always the same, right? It's always who you are and how you attack problems. I think has never changed for me. I'm always willing to put in the work to make sure that I am delivering what I think I need to deliver. Now, what's changed is what I think I need to deliver, right? I'm a big believer in what got you here is not going to keep you here. Hey, I worked really hard. So for us, it's division officer, you go to department head, and then XO, CO, and then after CO, you go to submarine major command. And I was fortunate enough to be for major command, I was given a squadron. Because there are some major commands that are not squadrons. So,
okay.
And the thing is my ethic has never changed. Continually improve has never changed. At each level, though, I had to evaluate how I acted and how I was perceived based on my actions. Right? You can be an angry junior officer that's yelling a lot and bad mouthing the system. And when you're there, kind of on the deck plate, you're there with the junior guys like, yeah, this sucks. And you kind of rally everybody around the suck to achieve the mission. Well, then you become a department head and you've got a few more people. Now you're running a couple divisions, but you're closer to being them, the they that makes things bad. Well, you're closer to being they. And so,
right.
And so you have to realize that the words you say have different effects. And so you're like, hey, I can't necessarily be that angry guy. I can be the rah-rah guy, but I can't really badmouth the system because it may get taken out of context by somebody who gets relayed. Hey, did you hear, the nav on this ship said that? So you have to kind of be a little bit more guarded about what you're saying. And as you get further up, and now I'm CO of a submarine, and this is, after like 20 years, the technology has changed. And so I always say that you never know any submarine like you knew your first submarine, like the one that you qualified on, you know everything about that. When I'm in charge of a submarine and I've got all the divisions, I've got all the people. And so I know how to drive submarines, but I don't understand this technology. Like, the fire control system, how we, listen in the water, how we shoot torpedoes, that stuff has changed. And so I don't have time to go learn it like I did when I was a JO. So now I've got to train myself to go, okay, how do I get the information that I need? And how do I learn to trust my people to do their job rather than insisting that I know how to do their job?
Mm-hmm.
And so you sit there as you get higher into the organization, you start realizing that you have to manage the people and the personalities rather than trying to be a micromanager who understands every single detail of what's going on. Because you'll wear your people out always answering your questions when you're not the operator. Instead, you have to learn. I had to learn how to go, okay, I may not know 100% how that thing operates, but how I need to go learn what I need to be looking at on that screen so that I can tell if they've made a mistake, and also to convince myself of what I think I'm seeing. But then I had to learn how to read people, how to understand emotions, how to go, that's somebody I can trust. That's somebody that is trustworthy, but sometimes he has moments. And to be able to read people when they're having a good day, when they're having a bad day, how to help people grow, how to help people achieve bigger goals. It now is my job. My job is not the technical expert. It's the leadership expert and the human development expert.
So you're a different person than obviously when you were an ensign. When you were an ensign, you were, like you just said, embracing the suck with the sailors. Now you're still the same person, same work ethic, different, just a completely different mindset. But overall, I think that from what I've learned, and I've been in 15 years myself, is that the commanding officer sets a vibe for the ship. I've seen that. If you have and I'm not knocking anybody. This is just experience. Speaking. If you have a very different COs upset all the time, mad all the time, it's going to drip down to the E1. If you have another CO who's just creates the vibe, and that's why when they ring the captain on board, they'll go ding, 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 Iwo Jima arriving, because they are the ship. They set that whole vibe. So there's so much accountability that goes on from that level that you're right. You can't actually learn the job of an EKMS manager because that's way too much. You just got to trust and know, hey, this is your responsibility. But at the end of the day, you have the accountability between all of it. And that's what's changed over 24 years. Jim,
exactly.
I'm sorry, you going to say something, bro?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going to
Akira,
say, yeah, no worries. No, I was just going to highlight one of the points that Captain Pittman just talked about. I think subconsciously, Captain, you've been using NLP without knowing what it actually is. You've been subconsciously using it to read people, to understand emotions, to manage emotions, and also to control the types of personalities that you run into on a daily basis. Am I right in saying that?
Partially, because I do know what NLP is. When I first met you a couple weeks ago, I'm like, oh, NLP. I know what this is. I know what it is. Now I'll tell you that you are correct that I have since learned what NLP is through my, just because I like to read books. I like to grow mentally. I like to read new things and learn new things. You constantly have to challenge your brain and what you think is true in the world.
Sure.
But when I first discovered what NLP is, I'm like, I feel like I do this, but I don't. Like, NLP is a very interesting thing to me. Like most things where you have to look at the situation you're in the third person. It's like, you're watching the situation like, you know what, I should try this technique on them and see how it works. I think that's very hard to do. But you're right. The stuff that I do just naturally for me, I think falls into that kind of NLP understanding of people, understanding the words and the effects that you can have and how you can change people's behavior just by what you're doing physically and verbally on a daily basis.
I say this because I noticed a very interesting trait that you just displayed a couple of moments ago, where you talked about never giving up. I think that's something very important to highlight because to me, this is the way I think. When something doesn't work, what do? You strip down your pants and you surrender, or you find a way that actually works. You know, you don't give up just because it doesn't work. You find an alternative constantly because there's always a solution. Am I right in saying that that's what your outlook is when it comes to dealing with issues and problems?
Absolutely. I often tell people, hey, you can't roll up your sleeves if you're constantly wringing your hands. Right. So you can sit there and worry about it, or you can roll up your sleeves and get to work and find something. There's always another way. There's always something better. And that's part of what I do with my crews and my staff now is, hey, I'm only one person. I'm only one brain. I am open to anybody's ideas because, when I was CEO of a ship, I'm like 150 people is way smarter than me. And every single one of the sailors on my ship probably has an idea that I'm like, that's probably amazing. And I wouldn't have thought of it myself. So there's always a way through. And if you're staring at a wall, you got to find a way around, over, or through. And sometimes it's by looking behind you and seeing the guys that you're leading and go, you guys got anything? And turns out somebody's got a shovel. You know what I mean? So,
or a bazooka, take your pick.
whichever one it takes, whichever's most effective.
I want to point out how, I don't want to say impressive or inspiring for people because when you think, and don't take this the wrong way, but when you think music major in the military, you think the people playing at boot camp or the change of command ceremony, the guys off playing in the band or whatever. But then here you are, Commodore working nuclear submarines and stuff. It's like, wow, that's a freaking leap, So I think sometimes just any way to get your foot in the door and work from there. I think people sometimes don't have that concept because, they have a goal they want to get to or something, but I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like once you get your foot in the door, you can about go anywhere you want, but I think a lot of people have a hard time thinking, well, I started here, so I have to stay in this field. Like that's not necessarily true.
Exactly. I think there's two things there. Wherever you start is not where you're going to land.
Yeah.
Life just takes its turns, and it's about what you bring to the table. What you decide that you're going to, the level of effort that you decide you're going to apply to the current task is where you're going to go. It's like I was having lunch today, and I was like, I'm over here having leftover shawarma and French fries, and I'm sure Dibs is over there, just measuring out kale. And it got all the kinds of things.
Chicken with a side of chicken.
Right. Just chicken and rice everywhere, baby. And I was like, and it occurred to me, I had a conversation in my head of some people would probably look at what I'm eating and then what Dibs is eating and go, oh, I couldn't do what Dibs is doing. But I'm like, you know what? If that was my goal, I could, but it's not my goal.
Yes.
So I'm not going to do that. So it's because people will look at what you guys do in weightlifting and strength training and go, I could never do that. You could, if that's what you cared about.
It's an obsession.
I've got a question I want to ask that I was thinking about because I had this conversation with a client of mine this morning before I came on here about setting goals. You've made a lot of steps moving forward. And the comment I made was, they had their goals written on their form and they had a new goal written down, but still had their old one up. And I was like, hey, take that old one down. Cause that's good. You did that, but I don't want you. Cause sometimes people will they got a new goal to hit. They're like, well, at least I did this. And I don't want that mentality. I want to be like, okay, you did that. Cool. Put that behind you. Now go to the next step. Cause I think that could cause somebody to lose momentum. If they're going for a new goal, but they keep focusing on what they did and writing on that is like, well, it might bring you to a stopping point when really you have more to go. You have another goal. Okay, forget that one. Go to the next one. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think, I think that's good because, you have to focus, it's the classic. Hey, if I got 17 things I want to do, well, you're only going to get one done because you're too thin. But if you only have 3, you might be able to get all 3 done. Right. But I also feel like, if you add a new goal, why? Why is that the new goal? Is it because, you don't want to admit it, but the first goal got too hard? And so what you're really saying is, I can't do that one, so I'm quitting and I'm finding a new goal. But I don't want to erase it because that would be admitting defeat.
Oh, they'd already accomplished the first goal, and they set their second. Like, they lost so much weight, and they said, okay, now I want to hit this. I'm like, okay, good. Well, that old one you already did take off because you accomplished it. Good on you. But I don't want you, when you can't get this next one, if you can't get this next one, be like, well, at least I did this, and use that as kind of like something to fall back on.
Like a crutch.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I'm following you. Yeah, absolutely. If you've already achieved it, that's classic. Done. Next. Okay. Nobody cares what you did yesterday. What are you going to do tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
It's like that guy that tells you how much you used to bench in high school. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how much you bench in high school, bro. You know what I mean? Like, that's cool. But what are you doing right now?
Well, why? Actually, Dibs, you can relate. When you make E6, what's day one after E6 is trying to make chief? Like, that's all you do when you're E6. Yeah. But it seems like when you're in, like, it seems like you don't ever spend any time being a first class. Like, as soon as you hit first, it's like everything you're doing is trying to make chief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's E6 again? I'm trying to remember.
That's first class. That's first class. So that's when you're to keep it for non-military people. It's like basically when you kind of like consider almost a grown up. You start hitting the more. You stop executing and you're more of like plans, and you start basic leadership of other people. Different branches. It has different. So I know like the Marine Corps, for example, that's more like E5 is when they really start getting in charge. And it depends on the size of the command, the size of the ship. I've always been on really big ships, so I've been on the Kearsarge and the Iwo Jima. So I spent my whole career on LHDs. So it's different where captain's on 150 people. I had about 3,000 people or so, something along those lines, including Marines. So, it's different based on where your career path goes. So E6 on a big ship, that's when you really start getting into the leadership position.
E5 is a sweet spot.
Yeah,
E5 Mafia. What?
So what advice do you have if you can, we do have, I did post this for a lot. I've had from E4 to warrant officers, that I'm a lot of friends with on Facebook, and chiefs, that are definitely tuning in and be listening. What advice do you have for them for, them wanting to get to the next level, for them to, whether you're, in E5 trying to, you're stuck in E4, maybe, people fuck up, plain and simple. I've seen people, they've gotten in trouble, they've recovered. And then I've seen people who've gotten in trouble and they've just, their whole life just goes downhill. I think, I've seen people who have just great success and they get stuck. They're stuck there and they refuse to go up higher and they're happy where they're at. What advice would you have for those people individually or as a whole, saying, hey, there is, you're not who you were yesterday type stuff?
It's you gave like 17 different scenarios in there, Dibs. So
yeah, that was my mistake. But I'm trying to accompany everybody from every angle. So you can answer that as you will.
If I were to try to summarize all of those, it's in as we say in the music world, don't cut yourself before you even audition. Right? There are people that like they look at performing arts groups and they're like, oh, I could never be a part of that. So they don't even go to the audition and try. Right? They, it's kind of it's like the people that want to go be a Navy SEAL, but they're like, oh, I could never do that. So they don't even go to BUD/S and try, right? Like they cut themselves from the process before they even tried to see where they were. So you talk about all those people. The guy who got in trouble, the girl who got in trouble and went to MAST or whatever, and they think, there's no way I can advance. Prove it, right? Prove your worth to the organization, because that's how you grow in the organization. Now there's, in the Navy, there's the advancement exams. You got to have the technical knowledge to pass that written exam, even make board, right? Get in the right thing. But what everyone is looking for when you're trying to advance in any organization is, show me the worth you bring to my organization. If you're the person that is, you're going to do the bare minimum, and if nobody asks you to do anything extra, you're not going to do it. Well, then you're going to get what you get from that, because you're not investing in yourself, and you're not investing in the team. So the organization's not going to care. If you're that person that is just like, look, I know the big Navy it's a machine, right? It doesn't necessarily care about you as an individual. And it's too big for any one of us to truly change. But I can make my little portion of the Navy great. Here I am in my division, here I'm in my department. why not work to be the best at what I do? Even if this isn't my career. Hey, I joined the Navy for the scholarship. I'm just here until I can get some money to go back to college. Hey, that's fine. But you're here. You have decided to do something. Why not be the best in the world at doing it? Because if nothing else, the skill and the dedication and the work that it takes to be the best at something is a trait that will follow you the rest of your life. So be great at it. Volunteer. Try to get better. Find things that you can improve without anybody telling you to do it, and go improve it. That's what's going to help you get out of holes that you may have dug with yourself. And you have to recognize that there's going to be haters. Right? Why are you working so hard? You're making us look bad. Hey, it's not about me making you look bad. It's about me trying to be the best that I can be. You do that. It turns out luck comes when you make your own luck.
Absolutely.
So if I was trying to give it one piece of advice, it is it's funny. When I was a CO, it was my command philosophy. Be great. Right? Whatever you're doing, be great at it. Hey, you got the chief told you to go clean, go clean up mess decks today. Then it better make it the cleanest mess decks you've ever seen. Make it the mess decks you'd want to show your mom. And your mom comes on, your shit's really clean. I know, Mom, because I cleaned it. Right? Do that. Be great. And because the ethic that comes from being great at something can apply to anything you decide to do.
When I was when I was on the Iwo Jima, I was prepping for the New York Pro. So I was actually prepping for a bodybuilding show while being out at sea, and then going straight into the yards. And one thing I've loved about, this is where I think I highlight, a lot of people see, is that I'm active duty 15 years while competing at the highest level. And I think that's why Tim Grover let me part of the group. He's like, well, you got to be crazy to do both. It's difficult, but I saw what I like about doing both is that I'm able to see really what I'm made of. And an example is this week, you know what I mean? I'm shore duty right now. I'm not on a ship, and I'm on call 24 hours because of my job. So I got a phone call 1 a.m. Hey, you got to come in. Shit's going on, yada, yada. Get up, got to drive all the way there. Go, and now I'm at work. So now I'm at work I get to work about 2 a.m. and I'm just working, and guess what? Shit's broken. I'm, hours on end. And guess what? Now it's the morning. So now I had to work all day because the grind doesn't stop. Now I had the perfect excuse to not go train. I mean, come on, you're up till 1 a.m. Didn't go train. Guess what? I went to the gym anyway, and I put up more weight than I did, because for me personally, my life is not just is I really truly want to see what am I made of? Where is my breaking point? When we did the attacks in Libya in 2018, because of my job, I had to be up all night. I was part of a system called Gale. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but that was my system. It was a very important system on a ship. If it broke, I had to fix it. So I was up all night making sure that we weren't going to get shot at, that we had our defenses good. Guess what? Event is over. Chief's like, hey, still got to work, and suck it up. I was like, I can suck it up, whatever. Day's over. Guess what I did? I went and I trained legs, because it's, for me, greatness is seeing where is my breaking point. Just like Kobe Bryant, when he would ride that motorcycle, he would ride the bicycle at 100 degrees just to see if he can do it, or play basketball with a concussion just to see if he can do it. So, you have to find out where it is for you that you're going to be uncommon amongst common people. You're going to take what you do and you're going to take that to the next level. Whether you're a music degree officer who turned to be a Commodore of 17 warships, or if you're a professional bodybuilder who wants to train after, being awake for 24 hours. That's when I think you find out what you're truly made of, is when you set those challenges for yourself.
Absolutely. You have to do things that suck, right? Like you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations so that you know what you can do. Because then when a situation comes that may be uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable as what you put yourself through, you can sit there and be like, oh, I just got called in, and man, I was supposed to work out today. And you're like, yeah, but you know what? It's not 1 o'clock in the morning in Libya. I've been in worse. I can get in. And so pushing yourself ridiculously hard, willfully, builds that mental strength so that when something comes up that you can't control and it kind of sucks, you can go, oh, well, at least it's not raining.
Yeah.
Like you've done worse, and you can give yourself that example to go, yeah, I've been in worse shit than this. And I still got it done then. I know I can get it done now. No excuses. Let's go.
There's a quote that says, with great power comes great responsibility. But I like to say it opposite. With great responsibility comes great power. Right? The more disciplined you are, the more freedom that you have. Right. And this is something I learned. And anybody who's young listening, in your early 20s, this is where this is going to make and break you, this piece of advice. And you guys can agree. When I go out, I don't drink. I drink in the last 5 years. I maybe had alcohol 6 times. All right. I'm going to holiday, whatever. I'm going to have a couple of drinks, but I'm just talking about the regular, weekend guys or Friday nights. I don't drink. I'll go out. I'll make sure everybody gets home safe, and I will have people pressuring me. Hey man, come on. Why don't you practice? Dude, you're out. Wait, you're no fun. But the moment they notice you're standing to your ground, no, I am training for a bodybuilding show. I'm a professional athlete. No, I have these goals. And they see that discipline, they will respect it. If they're your real friends, they will respect it. And after a while, they're going to model it. I will bet $1 million that at first, when they see you making sure everybody gets home safe, you get home, you're up the next day, and then the next week, you're happy about that. You're happy to make these decisions. That discipline, I promise you, they will model it, and you will affect everybody around you. That is the one thing I love about my lifestyle, is that I make my decisions with a smile on my face. In port, when we were overseas, 4 a.m, because the gym's packed on a big ship, right? I had to train was uncomfortable for people. So when we were in Norway and it was 30 degrees, I had to go work out at 4 a.m. And then I go start my day. And people are like, what do they're rolling out just, hung over from the night before. I'm like, what's up, guys? You out ready? Shortly after, what? I think I'm ready to, start training, start dieting, get cleaner, because they see and you have to be the living example. You can preach that shit all day. But people see, it's like when you're a little kid, you know what I mean? You see what mommy and daddy do. That's the way you're going to act. Same thing, I think, in the real world. They see it. They see you living it. They're going to model it.
I can attest to that, because you're walking the walk. You're not just talking. And Dibs, if you remember, I actually posted my last post. Did you read that? It's like, stand your ground when someone attacks your identity, but don't retaliate in kind. Just reframe the entire thing. And people started, messaging me and asking me, he's like, dude, how do you do that? Like, I want to learn how to do that. And they look at my posts and how far I've come in my journey, and they've started getting inspired to do the same thing. Right. So what you're saying is 100%, absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah, it's funny. I would change the wording a little bit, because I love good catchphrases. I'm a pocket full of t-shirts, right? But listening to your story, what it really is with great power comes great responsibility. With great responsibility requires great power.
Responsibility requires great power. Yeah.
Right. If you're going to have goals and hold yourself accountable and responsible, it requires great personal power to make those things happen.
Hey, the hardest choices require the strongest wills. Lord Thanos, baby. People ask me why I like him. I hear that all the time. Like, why do you like Thanos so much? And it's not because of what he did. It was because he committed his life to a purpose for something. Maybe demented and sad and fucked up as it was, in his mind, getting rid of half the universe, would actually help people. But his disciplines and his sacrifices that he made to get the 6 Infinity Stones that nobody was ever able to find, and he found them. That's, I think, why I admire him so much. And
I mean, a lot of his ultimate execution, questionable, but a lot of the things he says, you're like, man, he ain't wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you say that with a cover face, like, yeah, he ain't wrong.
Yeah. That's when we look over your shoulder, like, He ain't wrong, you know.
My fiance made me take down my Thanos poster the other day. I was just a little upset about that. It's part of the married life. You know what I mean? So she got us nice pink sheets for our bed.
I have a quick question. I have a quick question. Now, do you when you move up to the next level and set a goal for the next one as you went through your career, at what point does you get to a point where you're like, okay, from here I'm working on retiring and just getting to a point where I can be comfortable and chill for a while? Like, does that ever come to your mind, or you're always like, okay, now I need to get to where I can be in charge of this much stuff, or I need to get that first star, or when does that ever become a step, or you just keep grinding the whole time?
It's an interesting conversation because as you start getting higher and higher, those conversations start happening. Like, hey, so you gunning for flag? What are you doing? And I often tell people that I have, for good or for bad, I have never in my career looked at the next step because I just don't care in the sense that that's out of my control, right? There are selection boards, there are screening boards. I cannot control what people's opinion of me is and whether or not they think I'm right for the next level. All I can do is work extraordinarily hard at where I'm at. Now I say that the only goal I ever had, I was a JO. I had no goals. I'm going to do my 5 years. I'm going to get out. I'm going to try to take care of my guys. Then I decided to stay in and be a department head. And that's where I first decided, hey, kind of as I said earlier, the Navy is not a fun place for most people because they feel like the organization doesn't care about them. So
I've experienced that.
What can I do as a department head to take care of my people where at least they feel like, they're not going to wake up in the morning and be just like, Jesus, I got to go to the boat, right? Like, hey, at least my boss cares about me. And I felt like I did a good job of that as a department head. So then my goal was to make CO just to see if I could do the same thing for an entire ship. Can I make one ship incredibly successful? Can I make it where everyone feels good about the team? Can I help people be the best that they can be? If I'm worried about the next step, I'm making decisions based on me and how it affects me. And I'm not making decisions based on what's best for the ship and for the people that have been entrusted to my care. So I often tell, people in training here, and the captains that I have, I'm like, look, the wall of the nation's defense is made with the brick and mortar of her sons and daughters. Right. And so Mom and dad gave me their kids with a reasonable expectation that I'm going to give them back in the same condition or better. So my job is to develop people to be the best that they can be. And that's always been my focus. I have never focused on, and if I do this, I'll make the next rank. It's always been, I'm going to work really hard to make my people successful. That'll make me successful. And if that's what the organization wants, then I'll get promoted. And if it's not, why do I want to get promoted in an organization that doesn't believe what I believe? Mm-hmm. And then I can also at least say that I did it my way.
That's a good point, because if you're not doing the best you can at your current step, that determines what your next step's going to be. Because I have seen people that get so focused on the next part that they forget where they're at, and their job performance starts suffering where they're at because they're so worried about like getting LPO or doing something to get the next step up, and they're kissing the babies and hitting the checkpoints to get that, while not paying attention to some people that are under them at that time. So I definitely understand. That's a very good point you made.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Tibbs.
I like to think of a painting, right? And I use this quote whenever I train people. If you get a painter who is making a artistry like Bob Ross, right? What do you think the most important stroke of that painting is? Is the first one? Is the last one? It's every one of them. Every little stroke of that painting matters in order to get a masterpiece. And I explain that to a lot of younger people, because even though it's a little stroke, at the end of the day, it's part of the big picture, right? So whether you're bodybuilding, you need those tiny little details in the muscles, whether you're part of a warship where you're just, cooking food for people, every little detail matters. So that way you can get that beautiful painting. And I think when you go on with that concept, it makes your job a lot easier, because whether, and I've seen it before. I've seen it, in the military, a lot of people go, all I do is this, you know what I mean? I'm sure you've heard it in your time too, sir. All I do is this. But when you see that big picture, how that little bit opens up all this, that person now wants to do it more because they see what they're actually doing. And that's why I tell people when we train that little part of the bicep over here, the brachioradialis, it's a stupid workout. You barely feel it, but the way it makes your whole bicep pop, that's why we apply these principles, the principles you get in bodybuilding, the principles that you get, in music, the principle here, they all apply. You just have to know how to apply it to what you're doing.
Well, and you have to get out of your head and think about where it fits in the bigger flick. It's going back to what Jed was talking about. It's like people get focused on an end goal and they miss it here. It's like, I want to be able to snatch 200. Well, hey man, you can't overhead squat 150, so you're never going to get the snatch. It's all the steps that are required to get there. So stop focusing on this end desire and work where you're at right now. And the next thing you know, you're going to get there. People who all I do is X. Hey, all I do is cook food. Well, hey, man, I can't work the crew, for a solid 8 hours and then have them come off watch and just eat a bag of shit on crew's mess. They need that good food because I can work a team hard. And if I take care of them and feed them well, then they'll take it and they'll want to do it again. But we've all been there. You have a solid day and then you open the fridge and there's like one pickle and a bottle of water. And you're just like, well, fuck my life, right? You understanding how every single part of the organization makes the greater organization continue to work. Get out of your own head, man, and figure out where you fit in, and you'll realize that you have way more impact than you think.
Absolutely. All right.
Well said.
Do you ever kind of off the last question I asked, do you ever, because sometimes when people get up to the top, they don't think about relaxing after that. From that point on, they only think about reinventing the wheel or something like, okay, when I get up here, I'm going to find a new way to do this to where it's better for everybody over me. When I think about it, it's a kind of a weird analogy. When I think about it, I think about 80s guitar playing. Back in the 80s, you had the greatest guitar players. You had, George Lynch, Yngwie Malmsteen, Satriani, all these guys to the point to where they were all equally good. And the only way they could get better was to invent new shit on the guitar to do. Like when the 70s, you had all this stuff, and all of a sudden Eddie Van Halen comes out tapping and that becomes a new thing. And then you get to where Yngwie comes out, neoclassical, fastest guitar player in the world. So you get up to a level where everybody's at the top and the one person that goes past that is the one that recreates something new. Have you ever gotten to a level where you're like, you know what? I think this should be done this way, and this is how I'm going to implement it, and then that's how it's going to be done from here on out?
Yeah, is the short answer. Because I think everyone wants to leave their fingerprints on the universe, right? Everyone who, in whatever their chosen profession, their chosen field, everyone wants to feel like they matter and that their effort was worth something. And everyone wants to, on some level, everyone wants to be remembered for having been there and done the work. Now, I've come up with some stuff. I saw one thing when I was CEO, and I pushed some JOs to work on something because I thought that there was a better way. And we all have kind of some delusions of grandeur, like this is going to be named after us. Come on, guys, let's get it. But really, the drive is because you see inefficiencies in the system. And what a lot of people have difficulty realizing, especially our current generation, where we raise them from the age of 5 to believe that they have to be having an impact on the world or they're not living their life correctly. You have to realize that you have to get to a certain level of the organization before you can actually affect change. And so now I'm a CO, I'm a Commodore. I feel like, hey, I've been seeing stuff for 20 years that I'm like, this is dumb and it's inefficient. I may not know the way to fix it, but I'm going to try to fix it. And it's not because, I want to get a Legion of Merit and, this is how I made it better. It's just that it's been frustrating me for so long that now I see that I'm in a position to change it. And so I'm trying to make it better. So I don't know if that kind of answers the question, or it's an unsatisfying of, yes, I'm changing it because I can.
As long as you don't As long as you don't leave a legacy to change things like Johnny Walker did or something, I guess you're good.
No, exactly. Fair enough.
Because that's like a bad way. I mean, it brought up good change, but it sucks for him. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the people that change things for change's sake, that's no good. I definitely, I have no problem changing things just because I think there's probably a better way.
Yeah, you think, I wish more people in the military would think like that. Because one thing I heard my small 4 years in, it used to make my blood boil. That's just the way it is. I used to get so pissed off.
Oh no!
I would see first classes and stuff to be like, well, and I would sit there and be like, this is dumb. Why don't we do it like this? Like, that's just the way it is. I'm like, you're supposed to be the one that changes this shit. What's going on? Like show them a different way or something. Don't just accept it. Like, that's not, and I used to get so mad about that when I was in.
Yeah, I mean, and there are certain things in life where you can't, hey, it's a law, right? Like, hey, you can't change it. It is just the way it is. But you can change how you deal with it. You can change how you react to it. But you also have to realize what you can't control. I think a lot of times we don't recognize the amount of control we have, so we accept risk we don't have to. Right? Like, hey, you can control that if you really wanted to. I used to tell all my junior officers, you have all the authority you're willing to assume. Now, like, hey, you're the lowest level leader between the enlisted guys and me. If something's dumb and you see a better way, change it. Now I'm the captain and I'm ultimately responsible. So let me know what you're doing. If it's something that's going to get me fired, I get a vote. Right? Like, hey, if this goes sideways, right? Give me a chance to keep my command. But otherwise, go for it, because you and the guys that are having to deal with and live with the policies that we've put in place may find a better way. We can't change the policy, but we can change the way we deal with it. I'm all about it.
That goes back to that whole being uncommon, trying to be different, trying to take an extra step at where you're at. And, I like I said, I only did a few short years in, but that was one of the main things that I saw you always make mad. People would just accept it and deal with it every day, almost like they were in autopilot, just waiting for the next eval or something and doing the check marks to get up to the next level instead of trying to make an impact. And I just, I'm not that type of person. I'm always stubborn, kicking dirt on the line that I shouldn't be crossing. I was always that person when I was in. So.
Yeah. And it makes it tough because there's a large part of the organization that doesn't want to deal with that. Hey man, can you stop being that person and just do what we're telling you? But I think that limits the growth in any organization. You have to go find the people that are dissatisfied. The people that are the loudest and the angriest are usually very, very smart, and they see something that you don't see. And if you're not paying attention to those folks, then you are disadvantaging the entire organization and its ability to grow.
Sure.
All right. Creeping up on
this is why I like Captain Kirk.
Creeping up with the hour mark. I appreciate, sir. Really appreciate you coming on. I know definitely had a lot of people say they were going to come listen in on this, and we every week we try to give out advice that would help people. And I personally have gotten feedback from people saying, "Yo, listen to your podcast, and it's the stuff you talk about is real on here." And that's what we always want to do. We want to keep it real. We want to talk about things most people don't want to talk about when it comes to mental development. Notice the common words that were used today were be great, best, do the best you can, be the best in your spot. And I think that's, that's the standard that's always been set amongst the United States military. It's not, all right, just do a good job. It's be the best. And, we never settle for anything other than the best. So any final words, sir, before we cut off?
No, I mean, thanks so much for having me, Jed, Dibs, and Akira. You guys are doing great stuff. The podcast is awesome. So thanks so much for having me. Final thoughts.
Thank you.
Be great. Expect as I used to tell kids when I used to teach marching band, never accept anything less than the best from yourself or those around you. That'd be my final bit. If they're not putting out their best, you don't need that energy around you. And if you're not putting out your best, then you're not achieving what you're capable of. So
can't fly with eagles if you're hanging out with a bunch of chickens.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. And we'll guys listening, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Later.
Cheers.